I want you to kind of imagine yourself being one of those kiddos at, say, 14, 15, or any child. And when something like this comes up where it's very personal to you alone in that room, or you and maybe another, if you're fortunate enough, it can feel very isolating when a teacher would try to inform a classroom of something like this. They would assume this is more of a targeted threat, I feel. So it would break my heart if these kids come in on their first day of school, just like I came in to start teaching, and my first day had to hear the sad news. And so, but I'm 55, so I'm, I can endure that kind of harm, I guess you would say, intended or unintended, much better than they could. So I'll leave it at that. But for tonight, but I think that's probably one of the most important factors to consider. I know your hands are tied to an extent because this is based on State Code 538, and so there's only so much you can do. But although the intent behind the language of recent Idaho laws has caused tremendous harm to folks like myself and our students, I'm hopeful that you will consider policy that does not send that same message. I realize that you must work within the law. In recent years, though, laws are becoming more and more restrictive for children and adults alike seeking health guidance regarding their gender identity, and it feels like we are moving backwards. 10 years ago, when I started teaching, we at the school had committed to a student leadership program that was facilitated and taught to us by Steve Wessler, a civil rights attorney that worked all over the world to help resolve conflicts in communities. And it was at that time that I started working here, and I was really honored to see a district that was not only willing to consider me as a teacher in a world that very few teachers existed in the classroom that were transgender. So I had great hope, and I still do, and I appreciate what the school district has done for me, and I hope you will consider the same for our very children that live here in our community.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So we will move into our policy discussions, beginning with the first policy. The organization and governance of trustees. The purpose of this change is to update a policy to be in compliance with Idaho law. So it's policy 2101, as everybody has it. It's online for anybody who wants to follow along. The only change, it's highlighted in green. Does anybody want to discuss any of the changes, or does anybody have a problem with any of the changes?
Everything looks okay to me, including what's in yellow. I would defer to the judgment of the superintendent as to what exactly wants to include, but I don't see anything objectionable in either the green recommended or the yellow optional. And you could use your discretion to fill that in as it is most appropriate.
I'm fine with all of that being added. Jim?
I'm fine, yeah.
Okay. Next policy is board meetings, board procedure. I guess we need to fill in those days before the board meeting, and it's in reference to an Idaho state law that members of the public can request items to be on the agenda. That doesn't mean they are on the agenda, and we have to, I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're deciding how many days before the board meeting that's acceptable.
Right, and I think
So
that
first
the
of all-
last time that we had talked, we had kind of decided that we would go with that same language that we put into the negotiated agreement, which
Is
was
it
6
4
days
or
ahead.
6?
Yeah, 6 days ahead of
6
the board
days.
meeting, they could submit a request for a topic.
So that's what that would be in that blank. Okay.
Right.
And then I don't see any other changes except for that the board shall accept public comment before it takes action. We kind of already did that. We kind of already put our public comment at the beginning before this change. So I don't know if that ever.
Right, and that's more, we have our policy that kind of addresses our meetings and our agendas. But with that change, I think that since the Idaho open meeting law allows you to reorder your agenda, we just fixed that one to just address that need immediately. But we will also change our policy to show that same order. And we'll hear that one on first reading tomorrow if everybody's good with that order.
And then the rest of it is just in reference to vacancies. And I'm okay with all the green being added. It's just in reference to vacancies. Is there any comments? Okay.
No, everything looks okay to me.
Okay.
I didn't see anything.
And then the next is page 12, for those following along, operating principles. Those are just principles that we already have had. I guess in the following is suggested by the ISBA, and we can, if there is anything, I noticed proxy voting is not permitted, which we already do. The one thing is that, I don't remember which number it is. It's
What policy are we discussing?
this is not page number 15. It's the ISBA recommended board operating principles.
Operating principles.
So that on the PDF, I guess, yeah, on the PDF, it is, well, I'm on page 16. It starts on page
Yeah, I can't.
14.
And so the board has had operating principles for the last 15 years.
Oh, I'm on
So
25.
because this is new, the ISBA created one,
okay, thank
and I've included it, so you can kind of compare our operating protocols to theirs, and then see if you guys want to make any changes
Thank you, Joe.
to what we have.
That's different than mine.
It's so similar. I didn't really see anything that stood out a lot. What about you guys?
But I didn't see there was any changes in that, was there?
No, because it was, the ISBA created their own new operating protocols.
The second document.
Right, the second document.
After.
Ours, we have had for a long time. It's more just,
Oh.
you can look at ours, look at the new ISBA and compare them and see if there's anything in the ISBAs that you'd like to add, or if there are any changes that you'd like to make to the one we have currently.
Now, do we have number 25? I know that we have something similar to that. When board members serve on committees or attend committee meetings, their role shall be as a liaison to the board, and when addressing the committee, shall be only as one individual on the board. We have something like that, but I think it's under our committees,
Right.
our board, not
Yeah,
under
that's not in
this.
the operating principle.
Not in operating principles. So I think we have everything covered. Let's see. I would say on 28, on hours, it just says, surprises to the board or superintendent will be the exception, not the rule, which I think we are pretty good with.
Page
Agree.
28?
No, number 20.
It's operating principle number 28.
Of ours.
And then it says, board members having personal criticisms of district operations present the criticism to the superintendent at a time other than board meeting. I think that's really good policy. And I also think maybe we should add, if we have criticism of each other, we can do that at a time other than during our board meeting, if you guys want to add that. It's criticism of the district or each other. It just seems more professional to have that outside of the board meeting.
Yeah, I don't object to that.
I guess we can put that in as yellow, and then at our board meeting, when everybody's present, decide.
Yes.
Okay, so moving on. Public participation. This is just to put us in compliance with the law. And we have chosen 3 minutes. And I think, is everybody okay with the 3 minutes still? I think that's fine.
Well, I think we had it set so if there was a group of them and one person was going to speak for the group, that they could have 5.
No, it's 10 minutes for a group.
Oh, and I thought it was 9. So, yeah, whatever, 10, it sounds great. It does say that it should, on the suggested, it says limit it to 45 minutes of public comment. I really hesitate to make any limitations, because we don't know what's kind of down the line, I mean, what's down the line. I would want it to go further than, past 45 minutes, but I don't know that we need to put that in our policy.
Right, and I think probably with that particular policy, that's just for our regular board meetings where we have those public comment. Because usually, like if we have something big like boundaries going on, we'll have public hearings, and those are different. Those can go on for either a set time, that's really up to the board to determine for
Or
that hearing.
days.
Yeah, or it can go on for 3 hours, but I think for a regular board meeting, the intent and purpose of limiting it to 45 minutes was so that we aren't getting into 10 o'clock board meetings to just do our regular business. And that if there is a big concern and we're getting a lot of public comment on it, then that's something that we would want to do a public hearing separately for.
Oh, and then if we limit it to the 45 minutes and everybody else beyond that would just submit their written?
Yeah.
I don't care. What do you guys think?
Well, is it written into our policy as to, how a representative is designated?
That would be included in the 45 minutes, so that'd be 10 minutes out of the 45 minutes if they're representing a delegation. But then the total would be, we could even say something like limited to approximately 45 minutes. So if it goes to 50 minutes, we're not in violation of.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the 45 minutes. I mean the 10 minutes. Somebody's, do they have to represent them ahead of time that they're part of a delegation or?
Would it-
In my time as superintendent, we've never ran into that.
We
Because
did
most
with the
people will
library.
want to take their own 3.
Oh.
We've never had a delegation.
I think there's been a couple of times during when we were having the roadmap discussions where we had kind of a group that had one particular viewpoint and then the other side of that, where we told them, there's so many people here that will take the first 20 people and give you all 3 minutes, or you guys can pick a representative. And I think there were 2 groups here
That
that
deferred?
deferred to one person to give their whole,
For 10 minutes, speaking for 10 minutes.
yeah.
Did that help, Mr. Knott? Or-
Yeah. No,
It's more of the exception than a rule, I would say. Again, it doesn't happen.
no, I would agree. I mean, I know that we have representatives from the teachers union and everybody else wants their 3 minutes. So I guess the other thing is sometimes people they use up their 3 minutes and they need a little time more. And so I know in the past, we've exercised discretion to say, well, you can have another
Finish
minute
your thought.
or finish your
Finish
thought.
the thought. Yeah.
And so that's not official policy, that's sort of just operating
'Cause I'm-
procedure.
I'm totally,
So if
I
we-
don't want to, I just
If we
don't
had a
wanna
big
stop
discussion on
it.
something, like when we had the mascot change, we had a lot of people who wanted to talk. And I can't remember if we made an exception that night, or, I know when we did the mask thing, it was a public thing, we went out to Century because we knew it'd be big. And I remember though, I think Dave actually stopped that meeting and he said, we'll take 2 more and it was done. Or I don't think I guess you can just.
I read all the comments, they were long.
It worked.
That was back when the policy was 5 minutes also.
Right.
Yeah,
We only
And at a
only,
certain point, it gets to be a little redundant.
redundant, yeah.
Oftentimes, we've heard, those same viewpoints.
Right, exactly, and most of that was, back and forth, so.
Well,
I just remember, I know that we were in here and this place was full and we went on and on and on and on for a long time, so.
so when it says, Renee, on the second page of this that I have in my hand, of the request to appear, it says each speaker shall be limited to 3 minutes. Should a large number of speakers wish to speak on the same issue or topic, the board chair may limit the time allocated to each speaker, ask representative to summarize statements and limit the number of speakers, but it doesn't ever say 10 minutes. Should we add that in there?
Oh, okay, yeah,
Just say if you choose a delegate, your
Yeah.
time is 10 minutes.
yeah, and that might be in the policy, and this is procedure.
This would just
so-
be, this would be for their information.
Yeah,
So maybe it
we
would be
could update that.
helpful. Okay, thank you. And as far as the rest of the board policy recommended by the ISBI, I'm fine with everything in green because it's referring to, we can't talk about things that need to be in executive session. Sensitive topics, grievances and complaints that need to be in executive session that we can't hear. And then also, one thing is that I would suggest on this one is on, let's see if I can find it. There's like a lot of pages of this. It was, I think it said something about a member of, was it a member of the school district or a student in the school or something along those lines, or live in the district boundaries, which sometimes outside the county. I don't know. I don't know that we need to add, I don't know.
I think that's policy 6405 you're talking about, or
So what page on the PDF? Do you know what page on the PDF that is? 'Cause I found it, I just am not finding it now.
So I think are you still talking about public comment?
Yep, public
Okay,
comment.
the public
Oh.
comment and the agenda topics, it was written into the new law or the updated law, that public comment on district business and people requesting to be added to the agenda are limited to parents, students, and people in your district boundaries. So that you don't have somebody from, out of state
And so,
comment.
and that's the public comments that they fill out. So it's within your boundaries, but it doesn't have to be, and nobody has to be in attendance. It can be a grandparent, it can be somebody doesn't have a child in attendance, correct?
Right.
Okay. That sounds good. Also, I can't think of the other thing, so if I think of it, I will. Oh, yeah, the items on the agenda, because we have in the past had public comment on topics not on the agenda, public comment topics on the agenda. So would that change that then, that they couldn't speak on anything that's not on the agenda?
Yes.
So then how could their comment ever be public? Would it just be written and added to?
If it's something that wasn't on our agenda, then that would be where they would request to have something added to the agenda and discuss that. But if our agenda has been posted and the topic is not on there, the public comment would be limited to anything on the agenda, but nothing else.
And it wouldn't appear on the addendum or anything? I'm just wondering
Right.
if we should allow it to be?
It would just
Or
be,
not.
it would be that's what we have to come up with, is our process for allowing people to request a topic to be on the agenda. So we'll have to come up with kind of like a procedure for that. So it'll be like the 6 days before a meeting is held.
And that'll be
they could
part of our
send that-
policy.
It would be sent to the board, and then we would put into our policy how the board decides and what criteria you're going to use for saying yes or no. And then that's where they would have that opportunity to discuss that in a public forum, but.
Okay. So they would, so that's, okay, so do we want to just leave it like that they can't comment on anything that is not on the agenda?
And I would say that we would have to leave it that way just because that's how that new law was written.
Okay, great. Because in the past, we have had people that have talked about things that are not on the agenda. So moving on to curriculum, on page, it's on the PDF, it's page 24. Requires districts to provide adoption information and resources, contraception, STIs, it's referring to sex education. And it's basically stating the law, SB 1308. But then the recommendation is to include a statement to say that all health and sex ed must be aligned to Idaho code, and the district's current health curriculum is, okay, and we are in compliance. But the only thing I would add to this is I would say all sex education curriculum needs to be approved by the board. It really is redundant because all curriculum is supposed to be approved by the board. But I would want to add that because I would want that just to be sure that we had that public thing ended up on the national news about Idaho sex education. And it would be really helpful if we had it spelled out in our board policy exactly how we handle that. And so it's just right there. We can say, this is our policy. There isn't anything that we cover or that we talk about that is not approved by the board, which is redundant because all curriculum by law is supposed to be approved by the board. Are you guys okay with adding that to the sex education, updating 6101? in reference to sex, health and sex education.
Yeah, sure.
I'd agree with that.
And then it's just very clear to everybody and nobody has to worry that something is added and, then there's no rumors. It's all right there. It's all, we can just point to that and say, this is it. Okay, so, next,
No, I have a comment on 6101.
6101, yes.
Yeah, on page 28,
Okay,
in green, under sex education, it says, please select one. And I would select the board directs that a philosophy of abstinence should be a part of and the underlying principle in all sex education instruction.
and I thought that we had a sex education policy like that. I thought ours already said that, but maybe that was previous Idaho code. Was that the previous Idaho code, that it was to be based on abstinence?
Yeah, and that's still the current.
Oh, it's still the
Code.
current Idaho code?
Yes.
Okay, so maybe we could just put it right from the code right into our policy.
Right, yeah, and that would be, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So, so the second one, you would suggest the first one?
Yeah,
And then-
it says select one. It says either it shall be the underlying principle, or the next one is it shall include instruction on abstinence. And I think, since we're dealing with minors, that it should be the underlying philosophy, the first selection.
I like that we should include that it is the underlying philosophy. I agree with sex education in schools and, the birth control, human sexuality. I agree with having that in the curriculum, but I want to be sure that it is all publicly adopted, from, by the board. There's no extra resources that a teacher's using so we can point right to that. This is our curriculum. You're welcome to read it. It's just right there. There's no rumors, and there's no misunderstanding about it.
Also, just as a point of information, in our current curriculum policy 6101, it does say that there should be no supplementary. We have that already. No.
I couldn't find that.
I will show you.
So,
It's on. So you have this. Renee, you can help with the page number because I'm dealing. You have this policy. It's on the very last page of the policy, and the paragraph reads, "To this end, the adopted textbook instructional materials, when available, shall be used as the primary resources for instruction. Any supplemental materials used in the course of instruction shall be consistent with the tenets of this policy. Teachers shall consult with the building administrator and/or the curriculum department prior to using any supplemental materials of a sensitive nature." And then this is the sentence you're looking for. "No supplemental materials shall be used for sex education instruction." So that's already in our curriculum policy. I just wanted you to.
okay. So, so just as long as it's very clear that it's all publicly adopted, and nobody has to worry that there's supplemental stuff. So, is that okay, everybody? Do you have any other comments? Oh, I guess we need to finish your thought, Ray, on decide. Did we need to make a decision on that?
I think we did, yeah.
I would say the direction, because what I will do is from this conversation with the board is update our policy to include sections of the ISBA that you want included. So that would be one of those things that we'll consider for first reading tomorrow night, would be this curriculum policy with whatever sections of ISBA's proposals that you want to include.
Okay, so that Idaho law, and then the fact that it's the only sex ed curriculum, including supplemental materials, is publicly approved in board meetings. I think that would, there can be no misunderstanding about that.
Yeah, in relation to the ISBA 2320, which is, the recommendation.
Uh-huh.
I mean, everything in there
Yes.
looks fine to me. The red portions to be deleted and the green portions look good. The only thing I saw in there was, again, they said select one, and I've already made my opinion. We've already agreed on that, so.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, and also that we, as per Idaho code and our code, that no sex education materials can be provided by any individual or organization that is an abortion provider. I think that's part of Idaho code too.
Yes, that's
So,
part of the new.
yeah, so that would be part of that. addition, well, all the green, basically. Okay, so testing on page 30. ELL students who display dyslexic characteristics. Is everybody familiar with that? I loved that. That was my favorite piece of legislation, that ELL students and students who display dyslexic characteristics should not have to be subject to the same testing and sit there in front of the computer screens for hours just because they're required to, like all the other students, and that's an exception, so that they don't have to do that. Everybody okay with that?
Looks good to me.
I'm really happy about that. I thought it was very well done. Media center, it would be, I guess, I mean, it goes for several pages. It goes from 33 to a long ways. And, oh, wait a second. Yeah, this is our policy. Okay, yeah, okay, I'm reading our policy first. And then the second policy, the ISBA recommendations, it's just in the green unless ideas are in violation of the Idaho code, and then meets the harmful to minors. It's referring to Idaho code in all of this, as far as I can tell. So all it's doing is adding the language from the law to our existing policy. Does everybody understand? Everybody okay with that?
I've got a comment on policy ISBA 6405, and that's on page 41.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I believe that one's our policy, the 6405.
I'm sorry, 2530.
Oh, yes, yes.
I'm sorry,
I'm
2530.
following you.
Yeah, you're right, you're right. Yeah, the ISBA 2530 on page 41, in yellow, it has an option, or any district resident, and I would like to include that in our policy. It says any parent/guardian of a district student, any student, or any employee, and then optional, or any district resident.
Oh, absolutely.
Which I would want to include, may formally challenge a specific learning material item used by the district's educational program. So that item in yellow, I would like to include in our policy.
I mean, for example, it could be a daycare provider that, they see the stuff that comes home, comes to the daycare, and maybe they want to submit their opinion on something. It
Right,
seems
but,
like they should be able to, and anybody who lives in the district. So I would be okay with that.
Yeah, I guess
Or
my
grandparent.
main philosophy too would be anybody who resides in the district is a taxpayer, and they own the school district, they're paying for it, and so they should have the opportunity to challenge any learning material.
And again, it's not them taking anything out of the library.
No.
It's just giving them the opportunity to offer a suggestion or a complaint. Correct?
Right, yeah, like you said, it could be a grandparent, or it could be somebody else, or whatever.
Yeah. A pastor, daycare provider, anybody, youth organization leader, anyway, I think that would be appropriate. And then 2,500, the library materials.
Oh, well, I've got another comment on ISBA 2530, and that would be the next page. Let me see here. This time it's in green, it should be in yellow, but on page 42, it says optional. Additionally, the district may decline to consider a request for reconsideration of a material that has already been the subject of such reconsideration within the past, whatever.
Oh, however many years.
Yeah, so then currently, is that written into our policy now, what the time limit is? Is
No,
there a
this
time
is-
limit?
No, it is not. And I would suggest 2 years because, the board members would have already approved something within that time period. And then the elections, are 2 years. And so a new set of board members could potentially do a different ruling. And then I think it's their right to, if they want to, change something that the previous board did. So, I mean, it's just giving us an option of any years. But to me, that makes sense to do 2 years.
But right now, we don't have any, they can make a petition
Every month.
every month if they want to. Yeah,
Of some sort.
If it has, and that's referring to if it's come to the board.
Right, right.
And it's not just come to the district, I guess I need clarification. Who would have,
Yeah.
who are they,
Always have an opinion.
what, who would have,
Because, yeah,
I don't know if I have an opinion, but I have information.
there you go.
I think that one thing to consider is you're having this conversation of how long to put it to rest and stop discussing that book is the amount of time and resources that are used for every request for review. It's important in our policy that every committee member reads the book in its entirety and has a pretty thorough discussion. There's multiple meetings, so I just think considering resources, the use of resources in a wise way, I just think is part of the conversation. And I'm not agreeing on 2 years or disagreeing on 3 or 4. It's a process, and it's a process on people who are otherwise engaged with our learners, like
So-
the teachers and the media center specialist and a parent and a principal. And having gone through the process and then having to go through it again in another 2 years, I mean, just.
so
I would just consider that.
I want clarification on who is it that they're referring to that has already made a decision?
So
Who is
in our
that?
policy, we have a building, a building, if there's a challenge, it goes to the building and the building level, and that's worked really well for us. And so the media center specialist, the principal, some teachers, a parent, they convene this committee and
Then it goes to the superintendent if they're not happy.
and then
right?
if it doesn't happen, it comes to, if they're not happy, it goes to the district level. And in my time, we haven't had that happen. It's just been handled at the building level, and the decision's been made. If it's made at one building, we make it across the district. And then it's been,
It sounds like, I mean, that sounds like a really good.
Well, then perhaps it's best just to leave the option out of there. I mean, if it's been working well the way it is, why tie our hands to too
a
short or too
specific-
long a time period? I
To
mean,
deny, you mean to deny a request? Is that what you mean?
he means to set a time limit, correct?
Yeah, right now, we don't have a time limit, right? It says the district
Specified,
may
it's not-
decline to consider a request.
I guess I want to know, where does this end? If they're not happy with the district superintendent,
If
does
I'm-
it, our policy, I know, says it ends there. It doesn't ever go to the
If they're not happy,
board.
it can go to the district. No, if it's not happy, it can come to a district level committee, and then it could ultimately go to the board. if
Because
they're
our
not happy.
current policy, it ends at the superintendent. I know that, but I don't know if Idaho code, if we need to add anything in there that it would end up going to the board. I mean, that is not going to happen.
So,
I do not think it's
We
going to
wanna
happen,
avoid
but
that.
I don't know what.
We all want to avoid this.
so does this policy refer to just what comes to the board, or just to any?
I'd say, Mr. Knopf, and going back to your original question, the way this is framed under the formal process, in that very first sentence, it says complaint in writing to the principal.
Uh-huh.
So I
Oh.
think it goes back to essentially the beginning,
committee
at the
that
school level. And Mr. Knopf, also to your point of clarification, I think, and maybe with your information or input, Mrs. Bowie, time might be helpful as far as.
Just because
so
you
we're
don't have
not
to go back
reviewing
and do
them.
it again.
Yeah, I mean, as
If we've already
Mrs.
reviewed it
Burgess
and then
mentioned, I mean,
6
every
weeks later,
month
somebody
or
else wants to
Yeah.
review it.
two,
Okay.
yeah.
I still think 2 years feels good to me because
Okay.
it's a long time. Like a kid is through through high school. Well, I mean, they're most of the way through high school in 2 years. So I don't think it would be the same parent. Maybe it would be. I don't know. I don't know. I think 2 years is okay. I'm totally open to if there's any other suggestions.
I would go for the 3 years.
3 years. What about?
It seems to give them enough of a gap that they can get through other things instead of constantly going over the same thing every other year.
So 3 years. What do you?
I like 2 because I think you make a good point about changes in the school board or whatever, and
Yeah, I mean, it's just, that's how kind of often the elections
I
are,
realize
is 2
that,
years.
you
That's
know-
the only reason I was
It's 4
suggesting
years
that.
for board elections.
Well, every 2 years,
But you
there
still
are
have-
board elections.
In a 4-year period, you still have the same people. I mean, how can I say that? I mean, in 4 years, you'll have the opportunity for those people to be able to do that in a
Well,
4-year
do you mean to be reelected?
No, yeah.
Because it's rolling, like 3 come up for reelection, then 2 years later, 2, and then 2 years later, 3, and 2 years later, 2. Is that right? Every 2 years. So every 2 years, kind of the makeup of the board changes, is what I'm saying. But I'm okay with 3 years. I'm just saying that that's the reason I suggested that, is because it's a different group of people. And I don't want to assume that a different group of people is going to
Yeah, I guess my reasoning for the 3 years is because this basically outlines that it's gonna go to the buildings and then eventually maybe to the superintendent. So the odds of it coming to us, like, aren't as high as it is going to them. And so I'm thinking about their resources, what they're doing day in, day out. So if they're reading the same book and having the same panel every other year,
I don't
every
think
2
they would
years,
have to have a
then-
panel. I mean, they can make that decision again. But I'm totally fine with the 3 years. I mean,
Yeah, that was just my reasoning.
should we put that in our policy, and then of course, it's going to be up for discussion? And so, is that okay if we?
Well, I guess my question is, has been an issue now with these sort of frequent things?
No.
So, I mean, if we don't have it in there now, and this is,
You mean, so an extra rule that doesn't need to be there?
yeah, I mean, it would seem to be working okay without it, rather than lock into something.
I do think the trend is nationally and not here.
The trend is nationally that
There-
more explicit materials are being put in libraries.
And there are more
Awareness.
challenges and reviews going
Yeah.
on. And so
Yeah.
I agree with Dr. Howell that having some sort of, like, we've already reviewed this book, we don't want to do it again next trimester or next.
Oh, yeah.
I think some amount of time would be helpful. And again, I'm hopeful that we have processes in place that are very preventative in all of this. However, it's nice to have that to fall back on if it starts to happen more frequently.
Yeah.
So, Jim, what's your, what was your
I like
opinion?
it 3 years.
You like 3?
I was thinking 3 or 4.
So we can put that as our temporary, and then we'll be discussing it again at our tomorrow.
And next month. Yeah.
Next
for 2
month,
readings.
so.
August and
So we'll have
September.
2 more opportunities.
Okay.
But I totally do understand your point, so I'll give that some thought also. Health service. So on this next is parent permission form, and I was just, it's part of also Idaho state law, to require permission from parents. But of course, we don't even need to discuss the emergencies. Everybody knows what happens in the case of an emergency. And then, let's see, one thing on 13, it says student surveys, receives requests from outside organizations. Now, I thought that our Idaho state law said that no outside organizations can survey. Am I wrong in that? In that Idaho, last year, they adopted that. It was pretty specific to surveys, but I don't remember Idaho code number on that.
That one's not ringing a bell with me as far as the outside, or the only thing that I can recall with the outside organizations was the new sex ed, that the organization can't be affiliated with anybody that provides abortions. But as far as the surveys, I think a lot of our surveys come from outside organizations. Typically, we don't approve them, but we need to have a process for approving them or not approving them.
And so the process is that it goes to the parents to approve before it goes to the students.
Right,
So that's
exactly.
the process.
I see you're on page 48, is that it?
I am on page 55.
Oh.
Number 13, student surveys. If the contest deals with any controversial topic, the district shall provide a copy of the materials. That's what I remember it saying in the Idaho code. They have to receive a copy and obtain permission prior. Okay. That's what I remember the law say. I do remember that. Are we okay to move on? 13, sex ed, we talked about that. And the parent guardian has a right to inspect all, and that means any outside, everything has to be approved by the board, so it would all be very clear what that sex ed includes. And I do really like this permission slip form so much better than the first one. It's so nice.
Did we look at question number 13?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Or item number 13 today with a potential request
Yes, and I
revision?
included that in the addendum. We
Okay.
did take out the academic screeners because the new law was in regards to health screeners. And I think that originally when we had that discussion with legal, it wasn't very clear with the conversation that we had, so we had those in there just in case. But the academic screeners really aren't anything that has to deal with health at all. So we've taken the academic screeners out. 'cause
Oh,
we
that
still
whole
will-
number.
Yeah, that whole section on the
Okay.
academic
I think
screeners. We
it's
did leave
number-
health screeners in there.
Number 12?
Yeah.
Number 12.
That
12 or
one
13, I
is
can't remember
10.
which section it was.
Well, we don't have an 11. Well, I don't. In the printed form.
I have 10 as healthcare services and screeners. So we do need that one because that's
Yes.
referring to medical.
Yes.
But I have the educational screeners as 12. Do you have that as 12, the educational screeners?
Yes, so it was item 12 that was removed from the
Yes.
form. So, and that's in the addendum with the removed version.
Okay. And then any other comments on these? I really like the explanation of the counseling and health services. I feel like that's more complete than the first form that was there, and it explains. And then on the name pronoun request, if they mark yes, then they're directed to the school administration, and it says to document the preferences. So then the accepted ones would be written, would be documented according to Idaho law.
So then, what we're looking at right now, was that in the original, was this just
No.
added today, or?
No, that was added today in the new one.
Oh, okay.
That was just, was it emailed from Tara? Emailed from Tara. But it's in our board documents.
Right.
Is that what you're
original
looking
copy was
at?
Created, yeah.
Yes.
So it's page 57, number 17. So I feel like that really explains the policy very well.
Yeah, let me get there.
Okay.
So we're looking at, I've got the addendum, so that's a change to what we had originally.
On the
The
PDF,
number it would
it's
change. but-
Okay, so I'm looking at page 57 on which one?
page 55 on,
You're-
no, you're right, it was 57.
Yeah, it's page 8 on the addendum, if you're already in that one.
The addendum, page 8.
Yeah, it's the same.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm in the PDF, so.
And what number is it?
16?
Okay, let me see here. Whoops, here we are.
In the addendum.
Oh, okay.
I'm kind of confused about that, because I'm looking at the PDF, and I can't open another tab that has different numbers till I'm done with this.
Well, that's the same as the original, isn't it? It's just a
No.
different number. It was number 10 in the original.
No, it's not the same as the original that was originally email, or part of our board.
Yeah, we.
The only thing that
under
changed was
yes-
the administration, that directed to the administration.
Oh.
Because they
okay.
have to document what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, so that everybody's on the same page.
So under the yes component, Mr. Knopf, it's just in parentheses, please contact district administration.
Oh, okay.
To provide that name
Yeah,
and that pronoun.
Oh.
that's the change.
Oh,
that we
okay.
suggested as
So that
we went through
everybody-
This document again this morning.
Yeah, so that everyone's on the same page, and that really takes a lot of confusion. It doesn't, it takes a teacher out of being a middleman. You know, the teacher doesn't have any questions. They know exactly, because currently it can create some,
Oh, okay, now I see. Yeah, the original was number, yeah, I see the change, yeah.
17 probably.
The original.
Well, no, because mine's off. Sorry, I printed mine earlier. So I don't.
so on the PDF, this universal consent form starts on page 49. At the very first, the second paragraph, which is only one sentence long, it says responses to these questions will remain in effect unless the school receives written modification requests in writing. I would prefer that to this form to be every year. It's just part of registration. They just go through this and they acknowledge and they consent every year, because I think that things change so much every year, and I think it should be every year. It's not hard to get through it. I mean, especially if you've already done it before, you know what it says. But I think it should be just part of registration, because I do think that other districts do that. It's yearly. So, any thoughts on that?
I mean, it's currently yearly now, right?
There isn't one.
Oh, there isn't?
There isn't one.
Right. We have all of these in different forms,
Mhm.
so we tried to make it that universal.
Oh,
But it
okay.
is yearly though, right now, because all the forms go home as part of registration. So currently it is yearly, because this could be like in 5th grade. And everything is different in 10th grade than it was in 5th grade. I mean, just every consideration for parents is different. And their experiences with that child have been different over 5 years. And anyway, I just think it should be every year. But, and all it is a link, right? That they would click on, and they would do all the acknowledging. And it's just
Part of online
online.
registration.
It's just part of online
But-
registration.
So students don't do online registration every year. But what we talked about is having this done when they came into elementary school, at the beginning of 6th grade and at the beginning of 9th grade. So doing it those 3 times.
This doesn't say that. It
I know,
says
I'm just
remain
saying,
in effect.
we've talked about having this done 3 times. So it's not kindergarten through 10th grade.
I just think
but-
it's easy to send parents an email with the link. You know, say, fill this out before the first day of school. And I guess we can just say right there is responses will remain in at the maximum of 2 years. So if they don't do it the second year, we're not chasing them down the second year. But then at the same time, it's not going 3 years without them acknowledging these things. So I think it could remain in effect for 2 years, but I think it should be offered to them every year. But like I said, you don't have to chase them down every year.
Can we, okay, I'm gonna say, can it be, just remain in effect, offer it to them every year, and if they change it, but it just remains in effect until it's been changed?
So it would be offered to them every year? I'm okay with that if it's offered. But the other thing too is I want this to be a part of board policy, not procedure. So I want this to be, yeah, I want this to be, have a number of a board policy that it's in our board policy. So that we are aware if it changes. So that we're, we know what it says.
Yeah.
Because it's all according to Idaho code.
Absolutely.
So, okay.
Thanks.
What do you
Can I
guys
ask you
think
one more
about that?
question? Sure. So on that, like offering it to them and then they just update it as needed, would you, because at first you said like kindergarten, 6th grade, 9th grade, would you still really push the 6th grade and really push the 9th
Yes.
grade, or would it just?
How about if we say it's required for them to fill out a new form at the beginning of elementary, beginning of middle school, beginning of high school, but beyond that,
It'll be offered every year.
it'll be offered and you make changes as you want. Is that okay?
I like that.
I like that better too.
you.
It's a little bit, things don't slip through the cracks. Because obviously a 10th grader is nothing like a 5th grader.
Right.
Completely different considerations. Okay, so moving on to number, unless anybody has anything else that they like to offer.
No, well, I guess my only question would be, I didn't see any real change between the addendum and the other one. It just, there's a different number. There's 18 instead of 17, or?
Isn't the only change that the educational screeners are out?
Right, and then that the administration would handle if the answer was yes on the
Oh,
name, titles, and permits.
And that's in the addendum, because I'm seeing that on my PDF.
Oh, is it on the PDF?
It is.
Okay.
It is.
Oh, and maturation was removed. We have our own separate form for that, and it's also provided through the health department, so we didn't. put
Oh,
it
so
on.
it's completely,
What was that? That was 13 on mine, I think.
Yeah, it's the, I don't know what
Very
number it was, but it was the one that deals with sex education topics.
Yeah.
okay.
It's 14 on the original,
The addendum?
on the addendum.
Okay, I'm gonna get to 13.
Okay.
Sex ed covered, outlined, inspect.
Mr. Watson could speak to that if you'd like.
Do you have any questions? Does anybody have any questions about that? I don't.
I feel like we already covered that.
I feel fine about that. So if anybody else wants to, then stop me. We're moving on to, I'm in the wrong, I'm in the addendum. I'm like, it just ended. Okay.
Well, like,
Go
so
ahead.
okay. So then also, we're talking about whether or not we wanted to modify 3304, or is that part of this discussion here?
3304, let me get to that really quick.
Or are we still dealing with, I'm
What
a-
page on the PDF is that?
what
Is that
pol-
before the consent form? Before the consent form?
Okay, so we're looking at the consent form now, okay.
So are you referring to something
47.
before the consent form?
47.
47, okay.
Let me go back. 47.
So what was your?
Let me get to 47 here.
What was your comment on that one, for 47?
Oh, okay. It just says, update policy 3304 to include a paragraph on preferred names, titles, and pronouns, recommendation. Page 46, I guess I'm on, policy 3304, parent guardian rights.
And I do think that is in there, in the universal consent form.
The proposed universal consent form includes a section for parent permission to use a preferred name or pronoun and acknowledgement that staff and students cannot be compelled to use preferred name, pronoun, title, or if requested.
I think that is included, but I like that it has to be specifically written down.
I think that what you're talking about is that we will add that statement to policy as well, not just the form. We'll have that in policy and it will reference them to that form.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Yeah.
And so then you're going to work on the wording for that, or? Okay.
Yeah, and I guess, well, we're here, let's see. I'm going to look at that one more time.
Yeah, then it's in policy as opposed to, yeah, as well as the
Yeah,
consent form. Yeah.
For sure.
Well,
I
that was
think
the
it should be-
recommendation, and I thought that was prudent, so.
Yeah, I thought so too. Okay. Okay. So the next is student injury, illness, and medication. We've recently reviewed this policy. Do you have any comments or concerns about this one? Because we recently updated epinephrine, all those things. Oh, yes, okay, so all the green. I'm sorry. So we're on to the green of the ISBA. It will not provide or furnish. The only thing that I would say, I think all those are kind of in accordance with what we have, and I'm fine with adding any of that green, except for testing for STIs. It says, if the district provides testing for sexually transmitted infections, the district shall also provide information explaining current adoption practices were defined. We're not a medical,
That one we have never provided or offered.
I was going to say, we're not a medical
And I
clinic.
think that applies to maybe one school district in the entire state.
Oh,
So
so why does that have green? Why is it in green?
does it say optional? Because I think that they
No,
put-
it's in
oh.
green, like recommended to be added into our policy.
Okay,
What
and I
page
think
are we on
because
now?
ISBA
Page
does
64.
cover all of those school districts, that they put it in there for those that do, but there's, I think, maybe one or two in the
Okay, so
state.
we're not going to worry about that. Okay, that's a relief to everybody, I'm sure.
Renee, on the parent policy with the 3304, you have a section in there about parents and guardians shall annually be notified at the start of the year, any health service offer. Can we put that in there?
Oh, so we do need to do that
Because
annually.
it's already in our policy, including preventative health, wellness, screening, medication administration, first aid. It's already in our parents' rights policy,
Okay, in addition, but yeah, we would have that in addition to our,
but we'll just update it to the new law.
yes.
So probably not in the medical section, the student injuries, we could put it in the parent and guardian rights section, because it's already in there.
Okay, and I think that was more just like the emergency health treatment and the like first aid that we would put in the student
Well,
medication illness.
I think it says every year, I do remember that in the state law, it says annually, parents shall be notified of all medical services, including counseling. So I think this whole permission slip does need to be every year. which isn't a big deal. I mean, they just click on it and do this every year. If it's already created.
I think that they just need to know that it's offered, and having a copy of that policy covers that. But the
Okay.
actual form itself, we could leave that it's in effect until,
It has
Until-
to be
yeah.
renewed every other year.
or at the elementary, middle, and high school that we were talking about, and then offered.
Offered every year.
Yeah.
Clear.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you have any other? Okay. Anybody want to talk about lice? Okay, let's just move on. I'm fine with whatever you want to do.
Okay. So we're done with 8303.
Unless there's any other questions.
No, it looks good to me.
Okay, so we're on page 72 of the PDF then, which is military leave.
Wait, so we don't have any changes to that lice one.
Oh, do you
Just-
want to change? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Elementary child, of course I want to change it.
Okay, go ahead. Shoot.
I just kind of want to know the decision-making behind making it so that they're referred to the principal, checked on, but not like kept out of school until it's gone. Does that make sense what I'm asking?
I don't know if you can really tell, though.
Okay.
I was like,
All right.
It's state law.
That's what I needed.
I think you do have to add that we have to notify parents if we're to check now. That's state law.
yes,
Okay.
that's what we would have to add to our policy.
And that
Is saying
doesn't, does
that-
that say annually too?
No, that one's just obtain parent permission, but that would
So we
be,
can have that-
once we have that in writing that says, yes, you can, or no, you can't, then that would be what we stick with until
Okay.
they
Till they
do it out
change.
again.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Kind of makes it easy.
Pretty persuasive, huh?
Go ahead.
So we're on military leave, and what the recommendation was to update the policy to include specific benefits beyond the 10 days of paid leave. And that would just be our district out of the district's pocket paying, because it wouldn't come from anywhere else. Is that right?
Correct.
And what we're required to by law is 10 days?
Yes.
So is it recommended that we pay for more than 10 days? Is that what I'm reading here, recommended?
I'm not sure.
I was
why
going to
you
say,
wrote it up
it's,
that way.
it's more, and I don't know if it was just confusing the way that I wrote it up, but
Yeah,
the new law that went into effect was that we've already had a policy that says that they have up to 10 days, but then there are other specific benefits in that new law that we would add to our policy, which is, I think that was mainly like using their leave time in conjunction with,
They have to use their leave time first, and then if that runs out, then they are still provided the 10 days. That's clear.
right.
Okay.
Right. So that was new. That wasn't in our policy, and that was a new law, so we would just update that piece.
Okay, that sounds great. So we're going to go all the way past the military leave, including the ISBA, right? Including the ISBA recommended policy, because you'll just put that in according to the law.
Exactly.
Okay. So we are on to page 78, purchasing guide. The law prohibits government agencies, so us, the school district, from entering into contracts with entities that boycott certain sectors, including fossil fuels, timber, mineral, nuclear energy, et cetera, et cetera. So we just need to update our policy to include that.
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments on that?
No.
So, on number, our policy 500,
5304?
Yeah,
I think
5304 School Food Service Program.
oh, did I skip it?
Page 85.
Oh, you went past the purchasing? So I'm on the purchasing
Oh, okay.
guide,
Oh.
financial management, which is page 79.
Okay, thank you.
5104, okay.
So I know there was a memorandum, and I don't see it here. I could find it. I'll find it, and then I guess we can add it as part of this. Merchandise. So anyway, I don't see it here, so we can add that. I don't, okay, so all I see here is adding the boycotting to our policy. Is that right? That we can't?
Right.
Okay. And then, so now we're on 85, unpaid meal charge. As far as that, that memorandum, I think we should include that for tomorrow's meeting. I'll email it to you.
Okay, what memorandum?
There's a memorandum about purchasing, but I will find it. It was in one of our past board meetings, but it has to do with that same thing, the purchasing.
Okay.
But I'll find it. I'm,
Okay, yeah, send it to me.
it's
as well.
gonna take me a minute to find it. Food service, unpaid, the administration is requesting to lower the allowable charging from $20 to $16. I don't know, $20 doesn't seem like a lot of money to me. Lower it to four more dollars. Is there a reason to lower it?
Yeah, as you can see in the description here, our balance has gone from approximately 8,000, Mr. Balls, to about 13,000.
Oh,
in a
okay.
year. And so,
Collect, okay.
trying to reduce that balance overall without it extending any further.
Okay, and just correct me if I'm wrong, but our school lunch program really does allow for this, you know, unpaid balances yearly. Like, we aren't going in debt 13,000.
We are.
So
We are
our
going in
general
debt.
fund picks up the difference.
Oh, okay, because I was thinking that there was a little bit of wiggle room in our school lunch funds to allow for this.
No, no.
Okay,
No, there's, and it, we definitely are, that's what we call the negative balance. It's every board meeting, we present that to you. As Dr. Howell said, last year, we started about 7,800 with negative balances. And we
So it
ended the school
increased.
year at over 13,000
So
in
it
negative
increased.
balances. And then through registration, we were able to get that down to 10,800. And so it's just, if you think you have several kids that are eating lunch, you know, this currently $20 times 3 or 4 kids, you know, that's somewhat substantial. Pre-COVID, it was down to $11, but we thought coming after COVID, several years of free, you know, we wanted to kind of give a grace period, if you will, but we'd like to kind of get that down a little bit less. The $20 was four meals, and now we're 4 days, and now we're asking for 3 days that a child can go negative eating before he or she has to, you know, put some money in there. And obviously, they're getting notifications and so forth as soon as they go negative.
I just feel, I just could never say no. But, I mean, I can't say no to a lot of things, but I'm fine with that. Is everybody else okay with that?
Yeah, I just have a question on this. So the children that are living in this deficit area, they're, I mean, are we getting enough free and reduced forms turned in that you know it's not those kids? Like,
Correct.
That's-
Yes, we our
You know,
our
and some of
staff
it-
CRWs, they do their very best because they know who, you know, qualifies, and yes, we make sure they, you know, we do all we can to get them the application, and they turn that in. Again, there's some that even though they qualify, they don't want any assistance there, and then they
Well,
pay
you-
full price.
You know, I don't think everybody qualifies that needs it. So I guess this is, a little bit off, but I'm wondering if through the Ed Foundation, if they would offer, if there's a need, so sometimes maybe somebody loses a job, they don't qualify for free and reduced lunch because that's kind of a, you know, annual salary. It's kind of a bigger thing.
So they can qualify at any time throughout the year. So if there is a life event that does take the income, they can, you know, qualify with the, you know, proper documentation.
Oh, okay, I didn't.
There is a push, you know, to get it all. Annual certification is, I think, October 1st. That has to be done. You know, you have to do that every year. And so, but yes, if there's a life event that does take them where they were full price and now they're either reduced or free, they can definitely qualify there.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure that if there was a need that,
Absolutely.
that there was a way for them to get that money if they needed that.
Yeah, basically, they just would get the free meals or the reduced meals.
They'd have to just do the qualification.
Correct.
process.
There's just easy paperwork online and then provide the documentation.
Okay,
I'm good with 3 days.
I'm fine with that recommendation too. Because it does add up a lot more than you might
But
think.
it's not even, is that just one since it's a procedure?
Yeah.
So it'll just be one reading tomorrow,
Okay.
and then you can vote on it.
I don't even think that, it's more like the procedural changes, it's just more where that is kind of like a board decision with the finance piece. But with procedure, if you guys are good and give us direction, we can just update that.
So, and there is nothing else in here that's procedure though, except for
Right.
that, right?
Right.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Thanks, Jonathan. Is there anything else? Are we okay to adjourn? Is there any other comments or questions or?
No.
Renee will just go to work
Yeah.
on creating this.
Updating our policy for tomorrow night.
Yes, to try to have that prepared for you.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if there's no other comments, then I declare this meeting